From humble beginnings to the pinnacle of success, one man's journey proves that with determination, anything is possible. This is Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr. Inspiring conversations of triumph over adversity. Here's George.
Hello, my guest today is Butch Beard, a basketball legend whose NBA career spanned 10 years with 5 different teams, including a crucial role in the Golden State Warriors' 1975 NBA championship victory. After his playing days, Butch continued to make an impact in basketball as a coach for the New York Nets and Brooklyn Nets now, and as a college coach at Howard and Morgan State University. Today, Butch is not just a sports icon, but also a dedicated community leader and helps champion young lives through sports and education. Butch, welcome to the podcast. We've been friends for many years, Butch, and we know one another, and I know that there's a lot more accolades about your background that is not in that little introduction. So why don't you just kind of start off, Butch, and tell us about how you first fell in love with the game.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on your podcast. Okay,
thank you.
That's number one. All right. Number two, George, we've known each other almost over 60 years. You know that.
I know.
Yeah, that's a.
You look much better. You look much better than I do. You've had to look much better.
I don't think so. I'm still trying to get over a back operation. But the thing that is most interesting about my little journey is where I started from. And I started in Hardinsburg, Kentucky, in a little community of 1,400 people. Who would have thought that, I would even get a scholarship to go to college and play basketball. I was able to do that and go to the University of Louisville from 65 through 69 and play with the great Wes Unseld. And I truly feel that there are two eras of Louisville basketball, and I think that, Wes Unseld and I started the first era, and that, the era that people know now is the second era. So that's just a small part of my journey, and I'm very lucky that I was blessed to have, I think, the intestinal fortitude to fight every day to get a little bit better and follow that dream.
Well, Butch, I'm going to take you back a little bit to those high school days. And that's when I first met you. And we're going way back. The one thing that stood out to me, and you can enlighten us a little bit better on, is that the guys that you played with, the way that you guys played together as a team and worked very, very hard on defense. Well, the whole game, really. And I remember you guys whistling a whole lot and some of the things you were telling me at one time about how you practice and so forth. Take me through that team frame, because that teamwork and connection, because you all went to the state twice. You were runner-up one year. You won it the second year, and of course, in your sophomore year, you had a great team also.
Well, it stems from the fact, like I said, I was born and raised in that little community of 1,500 people, and we all grew up together. And it happened to be that it was a white minister of the Methodist Church that got the community together, and it started with baseball. And it was a situation where the white kids didn't know us because you got to understand, George, it was also just after schools had integrated.
Right.
Okay. So people didn't know people, Right. So he was the one who got the community together. We played baseball in the summertime, and it just simply rolled over into basketball. And we had I'm going to tell you, an innovative young guy who came to Breckinridge County, Coach Don Morris, he was so far ahead of everything that was going on in basketball at that time. Now we're going to get back to it. We practiced 5 hours a day. It's hard to 2 o'clock. School was out. We practiced from 2 to 7. Okay, and it was really interesting how he went about our practices. A lot of fundamentals involved, getting to know how each other would play. That's the reason why when we came to the big city in Louisville, everybody laughed. But we pretty much knew our role. We pretty much knew how we were going to play. And so Coach Morris, I got to give him credit for what he did to that team, George, and how he put us together.
Yeah. Butch, I remember when we first played y'all. I played at Louisville Male High School, and we were a pretty good team in my sophomore year, but we were number 1 in the state in my junior year. But in my sophomore year, right before we played you all of the kids in the school were kind of teasing about Butch Beard's going to come here, he's going to kick your all's behind, and all of that kind of stuff. And I said, he's little country boys. We got him. And I tell you what, the first couple of plays that I played against you, I realized then how great a player you were. And that was even in your sophomore year. You had broken your arm or something later on.
Right. I did.
Year. But
yes.
Okay, so you win the state championship. You're Mr. Basketball in Kentucky, number 1 rated player. Tell me about the recruitment that went on, how competitive it was from the universities in the area, and how you in that little small town with all of these folks there that wanted to see you go here and wanted to see you go there. How did you work through that?
Again, we're talking about a different era in the history of life.
Right.
The University of Kentucky was trying to recruit a black athlete so that they could integrate the SEC. The year before, they tried Wes Unseld, and Wes turned him down. And then my senior year, after we won the state title, they came, Coach Rupp came after me. Now, it was so different in the fact that there were half of the state wanted me to go. The other half of the state, when I said that I was going to stay in the state, wanted me to go to the University of Louisville. And then it became just almost like what the country is today, divided, and everybody had their own reasons why they wanted to do certain things. I really did at one time thought about being the standard bearer and go to, to Kentucky and be the first black. But when Coach Rupp came to my house and he sat down, he talked to my mama, and he did not. My mother asked him a very easy question. If he goes down south, will you protect him? And he said, well, Mr. Beard, don't worry about that. He says, I'll take care of you, boy. When he walked out the door, Mama said, you're not going there. You know that.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up at the University of Louisville.
Okay.
That really is. And again, I still wanted to play with Wes after playing against him my junior year when Seneca beat us for the title. I said, he's the best big guy I've ever played against.
Yeah. So you actually, or did you, because it was reported in the Courier Journal that you actually signed. You didn't sign.
No.
So there we have. We got that for the record.
No, that is for the record.
Okay.
I mean, they did some things that were pretty good now. Okay. And it was more boosters. They took care of my old man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think in those days, a lot of that went on. So
yes.
Yeah, it was not anything unusual. So you go to University of Louisville. You're teaming up with Wes Unseld, as you mentioned, one of the greatest players to come through Kentucky, and certainly play at the University of Louisville. And you surround yourself with some other good players that came out of the Louisville area and surrounding areas. So tell us a little bit about your Louisville career, your 4 years.
I thought, George, that my sophomore year, I thought that we were rated number 2 in the nation most of the year behind UCLA, and at that time Lou Alcindor, he hadn't, turned to Kareem Jabbar yet. I thought that we were pretty good. I really did. And then we go to the Midwest Regional and we get upset by SMU by a point. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And the NC2A championship that year was going to be back in Freedom Hall. I played at Freedom Hall for 3 years in Louisville, Kentucky, lost 3 games in 3 years there. So I felt that we had an advantage if we could have gotten back to the Finals Four. But in all reality, when you look at it, I don't think that if we played UCLA with the talent that they had and the talent we had, I don't think we would have beaten them at all because of the big fella.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah. And the dump wasn't in effect at that time. It was that
they took it out. Remember, they took it.
Yeah.
See, they took it out, and they made him develop a doggone sky hook, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. So coming out of University of Louisville, you were drafted in the first round by the Atlanta Hawks.
Right.
At that time, was the ABA? Did the ABA draft you?
Oh man, I got to tell you, great story, man.
Okay.
You know the Browns. I think the Gregories owned the Kentucky Colonels
At the time.
at that time. Okay,
Right.
My senior year. So my last year of eligibility, they meet me at my aunt's house, and in the West End.
Right.
You used to,
I know.
They meet me, and they tell me, if you sign with us, with the ABA, if you sign with the Kentucky Colonels, we're going to give you $10,000. They put $10,000 on a table in front of me. And I'm poor as I could be, okay? I'm poorer than that chicken in that bucket right there, okay? So I'm sitting here trying to figure out, wow, do I take this money? I need this money in the worst way. Or do I do what I always wanted to do? And that is to have, simply because you had the ABA and the NBA, do I have them bid for me? Okay. So at that time I was engaged to my first wife, and we go in a back room and we discuss it. And I said, I got to see what the NBA is going to do. Okay. I said, I know that's $10,000. I said, we're really rich right now. We got about $8 between us. So I went out and I told them that I'm going to wait and see who drafts me in the NBA. They put out that I had signed a contract with the NBA and would not, sign with the ABA. So therefore, I was the 10th player chosen in the draft in the NBA, and I was chosen in the 7th round by the Dallas Chaparrals because of what the Colonels put out there.
Okay. All right. Now I understand. I didn't remember where you had gone in the NBA, because the Gregories at that time sold right after that to John Wyatt.
John Wyatt
group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his group. So and we both came out in '69. So
right.
Yeah. So okay. So you signed with Atlanta Hawks and start your career there. And in my mind, you were probably the best point guard coming out that year in that senior class. And they weren't drafting underclassmen then, as I recall. But you came out and went to the Hawks in the first round and went off to Atlanta. Right, bought you a 1969 Pontiac
Grand Prix.
Yep. I remember how proud I was. There's no,
Well, you know what, George? Before I finish, I think people have to know. At that particular time, there weren't trainers, personal trainers, and everything. But I always prided myself in the fact that I was in better shape than you, So in the third or fourth quarter, I would take advantage of that because I have worn you out if you played my style of basketball. So after I had become a professional, you know for a fact that I used to get up early in the morning, and then you joined me, and we would run and we would work out. A lot of guys didn't do that. See, we were way ahead of our time, George. That's the reason why we have no hips. That's the reason why my back is gone. You know, we were doing things that a lot of guys, they weren't doing at that particular time, but it paid off in the long run.
Yeah. Butch, I remember the routine that we had and the 3 different stops that we had from running at Chickasaw Park to the U of L gymnasium, going one-on-one and working through drills, and then going playing at the Dirt Bowl, which is similar to Rutgers League in New York. But I enjoyed those days immensely, and felt when I went to camp I was in much better shape and condition than anybody. So those are great days. But it helped you when you went into the league. Tell us about going into with the Hawks.
Well, I was the only rookie on the team. They had a veteran ball club. They had Walt Hazard, God bless his soul. I mean, he really taught me how to be a professional basketball player. He was my roommate. He put me in a position, George, where I had my pregame meal at the same time on the road all the time. We always took a nap. I mean, here's what he told me. He says, look, your wife and the other wives can probably hate each other. But as far as players, we have to like each other. We have to love each other in order to win games, in order to be successful. And it's important that we understand each other, okay? And so that was very interesting. That was always in the back of my mind. My first time meeting all the ball club was a Saturday afternoon after I'd gotten to Atlanta, and Walt had a party at his house. Joe Caldwell, God bless him, had not signed his contract. He was in a fight, to get more money. So he introduces me to Joe Caldwell. Now, this is how I was introduced to Joe Caldwell. Walt says, this is our first pick, Butch Beard, blah, 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 blah. Joe looked at me. Damn rookie, you're the one that's got my damn money. And I said, holy schlitz, okay?
Yep.
But when it all turned out, it was like joining a fraternity. Those guys, they were really, really hard on me. The NBA was entirely different than it is now. We had the rookie and also the trainer. At that time, we rented automobiles, and the rookie and the trainer always got a doggone station wagon, which meant we picked up all the luggage, took it to the hotel, right? My first time in New York, I had never driven in New York. We were at LaGuardia. Bill Bridges was our team captain and everything. Hey, when we get this luggage here, y'all better beat us to the hotel. Hell, I didn't even know where 7th Avenue was, okay?
Long way from Breckenridge County.
I'm telling you. And it was so funny. I had the car that night. Walt Bellamy called me up. He said, hey, rookie, are you asleep? Well, it just so happened it was 11:30 at night. I said, no, Walt, I'm laying here with my eyes closed waiting for this call. What the hell you want, okay? He says, Rook, you need to bring the car down. I need a driver to take me uptown to Smalls. So I had to drive him uptown, wait outside. They wouldn't even let me go into the bar, into the nightclub. Wait outside like I was, it was like an initiation. And then in the middle of the year, they said, you're not a rookie anymore. Says, you're part of us.
You mentioned, and a lot of people don't know what Smalls is, but that's another topic later on.
Yes.
But the culture of the NBA today, probably about the last 10 years, different from the culture of the NBA and the ABA in those early years where coaches didn't like for players to fraternize with another team. You were close as a team, but when it came time to when you're going into another city and playing against another team, you weren't. It was somewhat frowned on to go have dinner together or hang out together,
Right.
so forth, even though that happened. So tell me a little bit about, because you getting it. We're not going to jump to your coaching days now, but the way it was then versus the way you see it today, as far as the culture of teams, players communicating and so forth in the NBA.
Well, I think back then, like you said, it was that way. I think coaches, that's the way they wanted us to try to compete against each other. I'll give you an example. So we played for the championship at Golden State against the Washington Bullets, who happened to be, Wes Unseld and our roommates, okay? We're roommates. We warm up. We don't ever say anything to each other as we're warming up. We're in the layup line, eye-to-eye contact. How's the family? Okay. All right. Okay. See you after the game. That was it. It was business, okay?
Right.
It was true business. I mean, after the game, we did just like anybody else. The reason why the game has changed today is because of AAU. These kids have grown up playing against each other for so long, they don't even have any idea, the competition that is involved. The one thing that AAU has destroyed, I think, is the kids will go to a place and play over the weekend, whether they win or lose. So it doesn't mean anything. It was a trip for them to go and play basketball. And that's where we have, I think, a big disconnect. I really do.
So getting back to your NBA career as you were moving through, you were at the Hawks, then you got traded. How did that first trade feel? Tell us about that.
That first trade, again, a lot of things going on. The country was in the Vietnam War. The Hawks had done everything they could to get me into a National Guard unit, not into Georgia, because Georgia wasn't accepting African Americans at that time. Lou Hudson he's the only one that I know who was a teammate of mine. They sent me back to St. Louis, and I was in a unit in St. Louis. Now, somewhere along, and I was going to meetings, flying in the whole 9 yards. Somewhere along the line where I was born, okay, down in Breckinridge County, Hardinsburg, the woman who was running the draft down there, her son decided he's going to up and go to Nam. So she's drafting everybody that went to school with him. I get the call after we are defeated in the semifinals. I'm in LA, okay? As a matter of fact, I had a hell of a game that night, George. I came off the bench, scored 22. I thought I had won the game for it. I go back to the hotel room. Ruth Ann calls me, and she said, "You got your draft papers today." I said, "That's impossible. I'm in the National Guards. I go to Richie Guerin, who was my coach, and then the rest of the Hawk organization, and we are trying to figure out how did this happen." And the next thing you know, I'm drafted. I'm in the Army. I'm drafted. I had to go. I had to come to Louisville, go out to Fort Knox, and that was it. When I have a bad back anyway. When they told me that my back wasn't going to get me out of the Army, I drove back from Fort Knox to Louisville. I was in a daze. And the next day, I was at Fort Knox. Try that one on for size, okay?
So you were later on. Were you traded at that point during that?
No. What happened? What happened was the NBA was expanding. Okay. So I was going to be away from the Hawks for at least 2 years. I got lucky and got out in 15 months. They went ahead and drafted Pete Maravich, put me on the expansion list, and Cleveland picked me up, which makes me an original Cleveland Cavalier. Okay, so that's how I got to Cleveland.
Okay.
And still I didn't go to camp. I did go to camp. I take it back. I had time left from the Army, so I go to camp, and I find out through the post commander that I could get an early out, and so I got an early out and went to Cleveland and made the All-Star team that year.
Wow. I didn't realize that you had actually had to go to service.
That's the reason why you slept well. You slept well.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't. I was fortunate. I didn't get drafted. Wow. So you move on through your career and you play in the 1975 NBA championship. Tell me about that experience.
Quite an experience for a ball club that nobody thought we should have been there. The only people who believed in ourselves happened to be us, because we were pretty good. We went to camp. We got lucky, George. When we went to camp, we had drafted Jamal Wilkes, Phil Smith. And Jamal Wilkes, his rookie year, was known as Keith Wilkes. And, a little thin, 6'6", 6'7" body with that little, that crazy jump shot.
Yeah.
You didn't think that he was that good, but he was good. Okay. And Phil Smith was a local kid that played at San Francisco, turned out to be a great player and unfortunately passed away too soon. So those two players made us really, really better than a lot of people thought. We started the season 8-0, and then Rick did what Rick does. And I'm talking about Rick Barry. He was our leader. Rick said he was hurt, okay, and we went without Rick for like a week and a half, and Jamal stepped up and was our number one option, and you could see the growth, okay? You could see that growth. And so as the season went along, when Rick came back, we really, really started to gel. The toughest series we had was against Chicago. It went 7 games, and the 7th game was in Oakland, and we won that game. But I want to tell you about the first series. It was up in Seattle against the Sonics. We beat them in 5 games, and in the old Seattle dome up there, there was like a pathway on an aisle to get to your locker room. So we win, we're on our way out, and the next thing we got to go past these people and up under a stand, and they started throwing beer on us and everything, and somebody threw beer on Rick, and Rick turns around and all hell breaks loose. I clock a guy. He goes, I clock a guy. I'm telling you, my hand hurt for 3 days. I clocked the guy. When we had to fight our way back to the locker room, and we're in the locker room, and we turn around, and Al says, there was 6 of us there. Al said, where's the rest of the team? So you hear all this commotion out in the hallway. The rest of the team was fighting its way to the locker room. NBA didn't have the security they had then.
Right,
okay?
right.
They didn't have the security. So we ended up fighting our way to the locker room, waited an hour and a half. We thought things had calmed down. We get on the bus, and the fans were still out there. The only time I ever felt, I really feared for my life, because the fans started rocking the boat. Rocking the bus, and it was scary. If they had rocks or bats or something, it would have been really a scary mess. We had to stay in Seattle overnight before we got out. Nobody left. We all stayed. We all stayed in the hotels. But that was some scary times. That's the reason why I think they had the security. The NBA has the security they have now.
Yeah. There was a little bit of that in different cities. Tell me a little bit about Hey, we just lost your coach, Al Adams, not too long ago. Tell me about Al and Rick, and those two guys were real stalwarts in the league. Along with Jeff Mullins was on that team with
Yep.
you. Some
Yep.
guys that had been around for a while.
Well, that's the reason why I said a lot of people didn't believe that we were that good. Al was a hell of a coach. Al and Joe Roberts, they were our coach. And there were times, George, scouting wise, they would go out and they would scout. Okay?
Really scout.
We had really scout. We had practice ourselves. We honestly had practice, okay? And that's the reason why it's very interesting to me that group of guys, we had so many guys that ended up being coaches. Jeff was a college coach. I coached. Rick, he coached off and on. I mean, we had guys that were really basketball savvy, and we loved to play. We loved to play. Al was the type of guy you didn't want to, with that deep voice, you really didn't want to disappoint. Well, boy, I need you to get over that pick, boy. You're not getting over that pick. I need you to get over that pick. So one thing you didn't do, you didn't back down. You didn't come back at him because he had a reputation of beating up guys when he played. So,
yeah.
But you did. But in my case, I never wanted to disappoint him because he treated everybody equally, and he treated us with respect. Rick, I think, grew as an individual because Rick had a reputation of being hard to play with in the whole 9 yards. But when he got hurt the first time that year and we saw us win, he realized that, this is not the worst thing that can happen to me. Let me get in there and be a part of it. And then Rick and Clifford, for whatever reason, Clifford Ray, they became real good friends. And that was it, because Clifford was really the guy. Clifford is, what I say, he's a class clown. He just kept everybody loose, okay? And that was it. Jeff was the old guy that would always give us, he'd always give us advice, what he saw if he wasn't playing. So we were good. We were good. And when we played Washington, I'll tell you this, we played Washington 4 times that year. They beat us 3 out of 4 times by a total of 9 points. Slim, that doesn't make you better than us. They had won 60 games. We won 48. They beat us 3 out of 4. We knew we could beat them. It was Chicago that we had to get through.
Right. That was a heck of a series, and you had a real good game there in the final game.
Yep.
So, but so your career comes to a close in the NBA, and what's your thought process? What when your mind said, what was your next step when you saw your career coming to an end?
Well, as a player, you try to hang on as long as you can. And you're working 2 hours a day compared to going out here working 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. So when my playing career was over, for whatever reason, Red Holzman saw something in me. It was Red Holzman who got me into the coaching profession. I don't know what, to this day, I have no idea what Red saw in me. I do know this. I've had conversations with him. And he said, when you came to New York, he said, you're the only player that, we ever traded for that I didn't have to give the playbook or, explain to what was going on. I said, Red, when you've traded 5 times in 10 years, you better know something what the other team is doing, because you don't know where you're going to end up at. So, he saw something in me, and that's the reason why I got into the coaching profession.
Well, before we move a little farther into coaching, knowing you the way I know you, that family was a big part of your life, and always has been. Tell me a little bit about how, from college, you when you first started your family, and how you held the family together as you moved through your career in the NBA?
Well, I have to give, because I was traded so many times, I still have to give, my first wife all the credit in the world, Ruth Ann, who, uh, I mean, she was the rock, because I was working. She was, raising the kids. I give her the summer to do whatever she wanted to do. But during basketball season, she was the rock. She was the one who tried to make sure everybody was doing what they were doing. Thank God she was an educator. So that helped. That helped in a sense. And I think that has helped everything, as far as I'm concerned, how my kids have grown up to be what they are. I mean, they're not highly successful, but they're productive people in society, and that's the most important thing you can say.
That's what you hope for. Yeah. You have three
No
girls,
lie.
3 boys and a girl, right?
Yep. 3 boys and a girl. They're all old, just like their father.
I stay in touch with Butchie quite. Our birthdays are right there together.
Yeah, I know. I try to get him into the coaching profession. I almost drove him crazy.
So your first coaching job was where?
My first coaching job was with the Knicks. I was an assistant coach with the Knicks. Yeah, Red brought me back as an assistant coach. And then from there, I ended up being an assistant coach really over in Jersey with the Nets, okay, with Willis Reed and Bill Fitch. And then John Thompson called me up, asked me if I would be interested in a job at Howard University. He was the real good friend of the president at the time. And I said, what the hell, let me go for this interview. I went down to Washington, D.C., talked to the president, walked out of his office, and was getting ready to catch the flight back to New York. And I called him up. I said, I'm going to take the job. And we hadn't even talked about money, okay? I said, I'll see you in 3 days and we'll talk about money. I called John and I asked him a couple of questions, and he told me some things and about how I should go about it. And that's how I got really to be a head coach at the collegiate level. And in 2 years, took Howard University to the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
I inherited a team that only won 3 ball games, okay? And in 2 years, but they thought, if you thought I was crazy when we were running at 7 a.m. in the morning, I was crazier with them because we practiced at 6 a.m. in the morning. I was nuts, okay?
Well, Butch, one of the things I've always admired about you is how you always used your skills and talent to uplift someone else. Even I would say going back to high school, the guys that you were playing with, none of the other guys on the team weren't that great of players. I think you had one other player that was pretty good, but
yes,
your game and your mental approach to the game has always been to help those around you be successful. So I wasn't totally surprised when you went to Howard. You brought that program along, and then on to, where'd you go from there to?
Well, I came back to the NBA. That's how I got the head coaching job with the New Jersey Nets.
Okay.
Which is a very tough job. But the thing about all the jobs that I've had, the college thing is really more important to me than the professional, because the college job, you have some impact upon young individuals. That group at Howard, now I've had some health issues, and when they found out about my health issues, they've gotten in contact. I was in a hospital really in really bad shape, and all of a sudden they show up at the Hospital of Special Surgeries up here in New York. Now, that doesn't normally happen, okay? And as they say, now they're grown men, and they do call me about, issues in their lives, and we discuss them. As they say, when we met you, Coach, we thought you were crazy. And I said, well, I was a little nutty, and I want you to understand that. But I said, I was trying to prepare you to go out and make a living. I said, some of you may have had the goal to want to be professional athletes, but you weren't that good. But I was going to do everything I could to prepare you to be successful in life, and they have been successful. They have, man. I got a doctor, a lawyer. Okay, I mean, I got guys that that really really did well, and they are I'm proud of them, and I think they're proud of their accomplishment at Howard. They did the same thing at Morgan.
So you move on to the NBA. You're with New Jersey, and from '94 to '96.
Right.
So tell me how that period spent.
Oh, that was difficult. George, it was a situation where I was supposed to inherit the bad guys. I mean, the bad kids, in the league. I had Derek Coleman, Kenny Anderson, Chris Morris, Benoit Benjamin. They weren't bad guys, okay? Discipline was something that they didn't want to deal with. And management didn't want to deal with it either. And it seemed like every day I was fighting them just to do the right thing, to get prepared, okay, to play. And we had our ups and downs, but I also think that I told management that these guys needed certain things in order for them to be successful. And if you didn't give it to them, they would not be successful. They had good careers. They could have had great careers if they had been more dedicated. And so my number one guy is Jason Williams down there. He's down in Florida right now. Jason played for me, and one of the best offensive rebounders that ever played the game, along with Rodman. They couldn't play today because they can't shoot the three. Okay.
Yeah.
So I told Jay, I said, Jay, man, all you got to do is get rebounds for me, and I'll get you money. And I got him that big contract. Unfortunately, he had some problems in his life, but Jay and I, we're still close. When he got inducted 2 years ago into the St. John's Hall of Fame, he came and got me. Okay? And he said, "This is my coach." Okay? This is my coach. So those relationships mean a hell of a lot to you, especially as you get a little bit older. But, it meant a lot to me that he thought that much of me trying to help him. And he's doing some great things down in Florida right now, trying to help guys, straighten out their lives, NBA guys and professional guys. So I'm happy for him.
So you coached at New Jersey. Then you moved from where'd you go from there?
I go back to college. I go back to Morgan, but I have a stint with Garfield Hurd as his assistant coach with the Washington Wizards, and we only had 41 games there, and it was crazy. And then Mike took over and walked in, and fired us, and never said, well, he didn't have to say anything to me. Yeah, I'm an assistant coach, but I just felt that Garfield had worked 15 years as an assistant coach in the NBA. That was his first job. Washington had issues, and my ex-roommate was, he was a general manager. And I told Wes, I said, if you're going to do something, I said, I worked under difficult circumstances in New Jersey. I said, but if you're going to do something with this guy, you got to give him a year. You can't give him, a half a year. And that's what happened. After 41 games, they came in after we won a game. Okay. Well, that's it. Wes says, Garfield just got fired, and said, oh, by the way, Butch, you were fired too. I said, thank you. I said, I got 3 years left on that contract. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh man. So
today you are you still connected with basketball, professional basketball, the NBA? I know you were working with the officials for minute?
For a while. I'm not doing that. I did until, my back went out. I was helping an agent up here to prepare his kids, working them out, for the draft. As soon as I get healthy enough, I'm going to try to do that. I think the other part of it, George, to my little journey was my 4 years in Louisville, Kentucky at Simmons College.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Tell us about that.
I think, I get the call from Jerry Eaves, who helped me at Howard and who I took with me also with the New Jersey Nets. He was starting basketball programs at Simmons College, which I didn't even know it was there. I don't know if you knew Simmons was there or not. I had no idea Simmons was there.
Well, I had my in-law was a minister, so I knew a little bit.
Okay. Well, you way ahead.
Not the athletic side.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, but I didn't know Simmons was there. I didn't know in any way. And I had gone by Simmons all my life. Didn't know. Okay. So Jerry called me up along with Reverend Cosby, and they asked me if I would come and help him, to start a basketball program. And I said, yeah, I guess I'll do that to help you because you helped me. Okay. So I came down and to start to get the type of kids that we were getting. We were getting kids that, we had 2 kids that were sleeping in cars. You know what I'm saying? We were using basketball as a vehicle to get them to come to school. All right. So the basketball ended up giving them some discipline, and Jerry is still doing it. And I think he's done a hell of a job just keeping that afloat. And that was just the boys. Then he asked me, I was getting ready to come back to New York, and he says, will you start a girls program? And that was difficult. Ooh, was that difficult? Because the ladies are really different. They are different. You ever, you be working them out, next thing you know, one of them turn around and say, I'm just tired. I don't feel like running anymore. What?
Well, that's where you had to rely on your skill set,
Yes, you couldn't get upset with them. You try to, the next day you try to figure out, do something different to get them to get at least where they wouldn't get embarrassed. That's all.
Right. So you were there for 3 years, 4 years?
4 years. 4 years.
Okay.
4 years.
Good.
2 years with the girls, and I spent the 4 years with the boys as an assistant coach, helping Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So now you're back in New Jersey, New York area. Do you still get together with some of your former New York teammates?
Yeah. I talk to Earl a lot because we're both experiencing the same thing. We both had back surgery and, trying to make sure that, you give positive thoughts to, guys and what you want. I used to have a place in Harlem, and I was only like 6 blocks away from Earl. And at that time, I just wasn't healthy enough to go get him and take him to the gym with me. I wish I had, I could do that. I may start doing that now that I can drive again. Okay. I couldn't drive for 2 years, brother. It was tight. I couldn't drive for 2 years.
Yeah.
So as you get older, you don't heal as fast.
Yeah. So Earl still lives in Harlem.
Yes, he still lives in Harlem.
Walt's there.
Walt's 3 blocks. Earl was 6. Walt was 3.
Okay.
So before we all broke down, we would have lunch every now and then. Okay. And it was like, when I met you at the time you came in for Penny. So Earl and I, we were meeting in this place on 126th and Lenox, all right? And Clyde is on 129, all right? I'm on 127, okay, between Lenox and 5th, okay? So we're there waiting on Clyde to come show. Clyde texts, he says, Beard, I can't show up, Beard. He says, because when I walk the streets, he said, too many people are following me. I said, well, if you take off those clothes, they won't know who you are.
Now, is Clyde always dressed that way?
Yes. That's what he was my roommate when I came to New York.
Okay.
He was my roommate.
Okay.
Beard. The first time I played the game in New York, I got off the plane and we played that night. And it was funny. He gets fouled. And he's laying on the floor and I'm running over. I think he's hurt. He looks up at me, Beard, how's my fans taking it? I said, oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah. He was always a classy guy. Had the experience of playing against him in college and beating them. In my freshman year, we won the NCAA Division II championship against Southern Illinois. So
did you beat them? Did you beat what year was that? Because they beat us when we were number 2 in the nation up at Carbondale, Illinois, and it was Clyde and a brother by the name of White, if I'm not mistaken.
Dick Garrett. Yeah, we beat them. We beat them in '66 in Clyde's junior year, but he became ineligible, so he didn't actually play in that game. The very next year we split. We beat them one game. They beat us one game. And that was the year they decided to go to the NIT, and that's where he really blew up. Ended up in the NIT, and of course he went out that year. Dick Garrett stayed. Dick Garrett and I were the same year, and
right,
yeah. But we never played them anymore once they went Division I.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we played the same team that we lost to them. That was one of our 3 losses my sophomore year. We went over to Carbondale and they beat us, and then they came to us and we beat them at Freedom Hall.
So
they were good,
and of course we could have beat y'all, in my senior year also. But we won't get into that.
We'll have that discussion. We'll have that discussion.
So yeah, I want to kind of end it up. Butch, but give me who you think are the best 5 players that you played against.
Well,
by position.
Oh, I mean, everything is subjective.
Okay.
They were all great as far as I was concerned. Nobody was as good as my idol, Oscar Robertson.
Okay.
When I played against him, I was always in awe. Okay.
Okay.
Jerry West, I would dare say. Okay. Kareem, of course, I think is the best big center to play against. Okay. Although Bill Russell is the best winner of all of us, okay? Of all of us, okay?
Yeah.
Forward wise, forward, boy, you know, I caught Elgin Baylor right at the very end of his career. I still say Elgin Baylor was one of the greatest players to ever play because he, jump up in the air and hang in the air and, and shoot on the way down with the big hands. I really do. I put him there. Then small forward. I'm going to hit you with one that you probably think I'd think of Rick, okay? And Rick, great player. Rick Barry, great player.
Right.
Great player. I'm going to hit you with one. John Havlicek.
Okay.
I had to guard John Havlicek his last 2 games that he played of his career. The New York Knicks played the Celtics back-to-back after matinee games. In New York, I held him pretty good. We go up to Boston. I have 3 fouls on me in like 6 minutes. I said, I guess they didn't want me to play today.
So last question, the GOAT. As there's a lot of folks out there throw it around loosely and so forth. But as a player who has analyzed players and looked at them over their careers and so forth, who would you rank in that conversation of GOAT?
MJ is still the GOAT right now.
Okay.
MJ is still the GOAT. I mean, MJ take your heart away. I mean, he would really, if he saw weakness, he really, that's what he did. And I coached against him, didn't play against him. Before he retires, I have to believe, of course, that LeBron will be the GOAT, because we haven't seen anything like that. 6'8", 6'9". I'm not talking about playing 20 years, because the last 4 or 5 years against these kids, you know, with his ability to stay in shape, he, you know, with his knowledge, he just simply wears them out. But before we're dead and gone, he will be the GOAT. You know, he will be the GOAT. He will be the standard bearer that they all will chase, I think. Okay?
Okay. That's fair. Well, Butch, I want to thank you for spending the time with us today. It's been great. Been great to catch back up with you, renew some of our friendship. You know, I've been pretty successful in business, but I want to tell everybody that you and I had my first business deal was you and I had a Beard Tinsley basketball camp. and we also had a little stint where I was working with the Kentucky Fair and Exposition Center, and I bought a bunch of Elvis Presley tickets, and they were so hot that you invested, and we sold those tickets prior to the game. We broke even, you know. So, you know, my career has gone up since then.
It only had one way to go, bro.
Right,
Well,
I know.
you know what
I know. But Butch, I thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks,
Because I know you. I know you. I know how hard you work.
You know where I came from.
Yes, I do. I'm really proud of you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
This has been Catch as Catch Can. Your success story is waiting to be written. What will you catch today? Go to tinsleyspeaks.com for exclusive content, resources, and opportunities. Catch as Catch Can with George Tinsley Sr. is a production of Advantage Media.